In this video I'm going to tell you about Edgar Allan Poe, The Horror Gamebook by Valentino Sergi. I have the Italian edition here, but the game is also available in English, the Gamebook I should say. It is by the same author and the same general idea as the Necronomicon gamebooks, which I reviewed recently. And those were based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft with a pretty specific approach. Very often when we have a game or a gamebook based on Lovecraft, it's more of like elements are loosely based or loosely inspired by, as opposed to the Necronomicon books were pretty much cut and paste. You have big chunks placed there. Nothing wrong with that. If nothing else, actually, it's a fresh approach. It's different. I hadn't seen it done before. In that, there are similarities here, that you have elements from several different stories by Edgar Allan Poe. So again, it's a certain kind of intertextuality that has a certain heavy density. Again, it feels like a quilt more than a cocktail in which the different ingredients are mixed together. It's a quilt of references from Edgar Allan Poe. Why is it different, though? First, mechanically, it's a lot simpler. It doesn't have game mechanics proper in the sense of rolling dice or keeping track of how many life points you have. It's much more narrative-based that way. It has a number of puzzles, yes, quite a number indeed, but it also has the solutions at the end, so that's pretty cool. So you can choose the level of challenge and or frustration that you want, and that can even change within a single reading session. I wanna try to solve this puzzle. This one I don't feel like. I'll look at the solution. I like that. I think it'd be great. It's great. I think every game book should have that. We have video games now in which you can choose the level. Even the easy mode doesn't have the stigma they call it story mode these days. So why not have the story mode for these game books also? So that's it. That's for that. And then there's another element in which it is different, which I, however, hesitate to describe because it'd be a spoiler and it would be one of the it's one of the main reasons of interest to me. I read this one thinking, well, I read the intertextual once and there is another one. And then I was pleasantly surprised that there was a very different, fresh approach. Well, what I can tell you without much of a spoiler, because it's there from the very beginning, is there is a very unusual relationship between you, the physical reader, and the you in the text. Well, we know from gamebooks, Lone Wolf, Fighting Fantasy, you are the hero. So the text says you do this, you do that, and you kind of like, you feel like you're there. You kind of like inhabit that avatar. And really is a similar relationship between a video game avatar and a player / reader. But in those books, you kind of forget that you is not you. You want to become the same you. You feel like you are that person there. This game book is very different and very unusual and more experimental because it creates a distance. Yeah, sometimes the text says you do this, you do that, and you forget that and you feel like you are there. Other times, however, the text talks about the avatar. The text refers to the you, then it switches, says now your avatar is traumatized by this or that. Now your avatar is scared. So basically the relationship between you, the physical reader, and the you in the text is not one-to-one. Is not invisible. It is made visible very often, and you realize that you really feel like you're playing a survival horror video game in which you're controlling your avatar, and the text is telling you that your avatar is doing this, your avatar is doing that. And you need to keep track of the various, not stats, but statuses that your avatar may acquire. And so that's a very fresh, that's a very unique approach. And what is the mission? I'm not going to tell you because you don't know at the beginning. The book starts very strong with a very dark, very horrific situation. I think, if anything else, maybe it has the most horrific situation at the beginning. Then you can't keep up with that, with what happens there at the beginning. And then as you continue the story, well, it clarifies the objectives and you kind of get a sense of what the ultimate goal will be. But again, it's very interesting because there is this non-obvious, non-trivial relationship between you and your avatar who sometimes likes you, sometimes trusts you, sometimes doesn't like you too much. But you realize that ultimately your job is to do something for this imaginary person. So a thing that again is very different is that the book is very meta. It is not just a horror story, but it's about horror stories. It is about what happens between the reader and the character as we see the character of a horror story, any kind of horror story, going through these kind of horrors. And then you start wondering, but why am I enjoying this so much? Why am I still watching if it's a horror movie? So it starts like a horror game book, and then it also becomes more of an ambitious, experimental, almost meta conversation between you and the avatar and you and the author, ideally, about horror fiction in general. And so I'm sorry to have to keep this review a little vaguer than most, but I gotta, because again, this is an unusual book, and so maybe commends an unusual review. It's very good, it's very different. If you're just going for, oh, I want the adventure, defeat the monsters, loot the treasure, not for you. This is a game book which is a lot more ambitious, but it's very successful. I didn't mention production values. I should always start from those. Very good. I like it. They're good. So good production values, but most importantly, it's a very unique book. It's very meta. It's very ambitious. But despite being pretty ambitious, I think it is also very successful.